The stars had always called to humanity. For thousands of years, people looked up at the night sky and wondered if they were alone. In the year 2089, they got their answer. A massive alien ship appeared above Earth, blocking out the sun over the Atlantic Ocean. The world held its breath. Governments prepared for war. Religious leaders called it the end times. But the aliens did not come to fight or destroy. They came to deliver a message. The ship belonged to the conquered of allied species, a coalition of 47 alien civilizations that had ruled the galaxy for over 10,000 years. Their message was simple and cold. Humanity was now aware of galactic civilization. They were welcome to watch and listen, but they were not welcome to speak. Earth was classified as a Class 7 civilization, the lowest tier possible, barely above animals in the eyes of the galaxy. Humans were primitive creatures who had just learned to leave their own planet. They had nothing to offer and nothing to say that mattered. The world leaders gathered at the United Nations to discuss their response. Some wanted to fight, some wanted to beg for acceptance, but a quiet voice rose above the chaos. It belonged to a young diplomat named Daniel Hayes. He suggested something radical. He suggested that humanity should accept the terms. They should watch. They should listen. They should learn. And they should wait. It took 3 years of debate, but eventually the world agreed. The Global Unity Accord was signed by every nation on Earth. Humanity would speak with one voice, and that voice would remain silent until they were ready to be heard. 97 years passed. Admiral Cole stood at the observation deck of the orbital station called Vigil. She was 62 years old, with gray hair cut short and eyes that had seen too much. She had spent her entire adult life in service to the United Earth Navy, a military force that officially did not exist. To the aliens, Earth had no real military, just some old ships patrolling their tiny corner of space. The aliens never looked closely enough to see the truth. Watched Earth rotate slowly beneath her. The blue oceans and green continents looked so peaceful from up here. Down there, 8 billion people lived their lives, went to work, raised their families. Most of them had never met an alien. Most of them tried not to think about the fact that the galaxy considered them worthless, but thought about it every single day. Her communication device buzzed. A message was coming through from Titan, one of the moons of Saturn. She recognized the sender immediately. Commander Samuel Price was an old friend, one of the few people she trusted completely. His message was only 6 words long. They crossed a line today. Felt her stomach tighten. She walked quickly to the command center and pulled up the Galactic Broadcast Network. Humanity had been given access to these broadcasts as part of their observer status. The aliens thought humans were too stupid to understand most of it. They were wrong. The broadcast showed the Great Assembly Hall of the Conquered. Representatives from all 47 species were gathered for their monthly session. At the center podium stood Ambassador of the Dominion. There were tall creatures with 4 arms and pale blue skin. They considered themselves the most cultured and intelligent species in the galaxy. Was their chief diplomat, known for his sharp tongue and cruel humor. Activated the translation system and listened. Was responding to a petition. Earth had submitted another request for basic trade rights, the 19th such request in 40 years. Every single one had been rejected. Had not expected this one to be different, but she had not expected what came next. Held up the petition document and smiled. His smile showed too many teeth. The humans have petitioned for trade rights again, he announced to the assembly. His voice dripped with amusement. Perhaps we should grant them permission to clean our waste processors. It is the only task suited to creatures of such limited cognition. Laughter rippled through the assembly hall. Dozens of alien species, thousands of representatives, all laughing at humanity. Continued, warming to his audience. Their entire species is an evolutionary accident, a cosmic joke that somehow learned to bang rocks together. They have contributed nothing to galactic civilization. They have no art worth viewing, no science worth studying, no philosophy worth considering. They are mayflies, here today and gone tomorrow, and the galaxy will not notice their passing. The laughter grew louder. Some aliens were standing now, applauding. This was the greatest entertainment they had enjoyed in years. Stood frozen at her console. She had heard insults before. Every human who worked in space had heard them. The aliens did not even try to hide their contempt. But this was different. This was not a casual comment or a private joke. This was the official representative of a major galactic power, mocking humanity in front of the entire galaxy. This broadcast would be archived forever. 1,000 years from now, aliens would watch this recording and laugh at the primitive humans who thought they deserved respect. Something changed inside at that moment. She had spent her whole life following orders, trusting the plan, believing that patience would eventually pay off. But patience had limits, pride had limits, and humanity had just watched both of those limits get crossed. She opened a secure channel to Earth. Secretary General Daniel Hayes, now 94 years old but still sharp as ever, appeared on her screen. He looked tired, realized he had already seen the broadcast. "Sir," she said, her voice steady despite the anger burning in her chest, "I think our patience has run out." Hayes was silent for a long moment. Behind him could see other officials gathered, their faces grim. The whole world had seen the broadcast. The whole world had heard the laughter. Finally, Hayes spoke. His voice was soft but carried the weight of a century of planning. "Admiral Cole, I am authorizing Phase 7. Contact Dr. Morgan at the Prometheus facility. Tell her the silence ends tonight." Felt her heart pound. Phase 7. The words she had waited her entire career to hear. The moment humanity had been preparing for across 3 generations. "Yes, sir," she replied. "And sir, when we speak, I want to make sure they hear every word." Hayes almost smiled. "They will, Admiral. The whole galaxy will hear us, and they will never laugh at humanity again." Closed the channel and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, 47 alien species thought they knew what humans were capable of. They thought they understood Earth and its people. They had watched humanity for a century and seen only silence. They had no idea what was coming. She turned to her crew and gave the order that would change galactic history forever. "Begin the awakening. It is time for humanity to speak." Dr. Lisa Morgan had not seen sunlight in 15 years. She lived and worked in a place that officially did not exist, a massive research facility carved into the heart of an asteroid floating in the dark space beyond Neptune. The facility was called Prometheus, named after the ancient god who stole fire from heaven and gave it to humanity. The name was fitting. The scientists here were stealing something far more valuable than fire. Lisa was 58 years old, with brown hair that had started turning white and hands that shook slightly from decades of precise laboratory work. She was the director of Prometheus now, responsible for 3,000 of humanity's minds. Engineers, physicists, biologists, computer scientists. They had all given up normal lives to work here in secret. Many of them would never see Earth again. They had accepted that sacrifice because they believed in the mission. The mission was simple: learn everything the aliens knew, then surpass them. For 100 years, the Conquered had given humanity access to galactic broadcasts. They thought they were being generous, allowing the primitive humans to observe true civilization. They never realized they were giving humanity the keys to their own destruction. Every broadcast contained information, technical specifications hidden in ship designs, scientific principles revealed in educational programs, military tactics displayed in historical documentaries. The aliens talked openly about everything because they never imagined humans could understand. But humans understood. They understood everything. Lisa walked through the main corridor of the facility, passing laboratories filled with impossible technology. In one room, engineers were testing an artificial gravity generator that was 300 years ahead of anything the Conquered possessed. In another, Physicists were calibrating a faster-than-light drive that could cross the galaxy in days instead of months. In a third, weapons specialists were examining energy systems that could crack a planet in half. Humanity had not wasted its century of silence. The message from Secretary General Hayes arrived at 3 in the morning facility time. Lisa was in her office, reviewing the latest test results, when her secure terminal activated. The encryption was the highest level possible. Only 5 people in the entire solar system had clearance to send messages like this. Hayes appeared on her screen. He looked older than she remembered, worn down by decades of carrying a secret that could change everything. Behind him, she could see other officials, their faces serious and determined. "Dr. Morgan," Hayes said, "the Concord has rejected our petition for basic trade rights for the 19th time. Ambassador's comments have been broadcast galaxy-wide. I assume you have seen them." Lisa nodded. She had watched the broadcast 3 times. Each time, the laughter of the alien assembly had made her angrier. "Public sentiment on Earth has shifted dramatically," Hayes continued. "People are demanding action. The silence has served its purpose. We are ready. I am authorizing Phase 7. Lisa felt a chill run down her spine. Phase 7. The culmination of everything Prometheus had worked toward. The moment when humanity would reveal its true face to the galaxy. "Understood, sir," she replied. "How much time do we have?" "I want the fleet deployed within 48 hours. Admiral Cole is already preparing her forces. Your job is to ensure all systems are fully operational." "They will be, sir. We have been ready for 20 years. Hayes paused, and for a moment Lisa saw something in his eyes that looked almost like fear. Not fear of the aliens, but fear of what humanity was about to become. "Dr. Morgan," he said quietly, "when this begins, there is no going back. We will either earn our place among the stars, or we will make enemies of the entire galaxy. Are you certain our technology is superior?" Lisa thought about all the tests, all the simulations, all the years of careful preparation. She thought about the young scientists who had devoted their lives to this moment. She thought about her own daughter, born on this asteroid, who had never seen a tree or felt rain on her face. "Sir," she said firmly, "the Conquered thinks they are the most advanced civilization in the galaxy. They are wrong. We have surpassed them in every meaningful way. Our ships are faster, our weapons are stronger, our computers are smarter. When we reveal ourselves, they will understand that their century of mockery was the greatest mistake they ever made." Hayes nodded slowly. "Then begin the awakening. May God help us all." The connection ended. Lisa stood alone in her office for a moment, letting the weight of the moment settle over her. Then she activated the facility-wide communication system. "Attention all personnel. This is Director Morgan. Phase 7 has been authorized. All departments are to begin final preparations immediately. Repeat, Phase 7 is active. This is not a drill." The response was immediate. Across the facility, lights changed from standard white to urgent amber. Alarms sounded in every corridor. 3,000 people stopped whatever they were doing and moved to their assigned stations with practiced efficiency. They had trained for this moment for years. Now it was finally happening. Chief Engineer arrived at the command center within minutes. He was a large man with calloused hands and a mind that could solve problems other people could not even understand. He had designed most of the ships that were about to change galactic history. "The fleet is ready," he reported. 1,200 ships, all fully operational. Faster, stronger, and more advanced than anything in the Conquered Armada. Our smallest patrol craft could destroy their largest battleship." Lisa nodded. "And the communication network. We can broadcast to every inhabited system simultaneously. When Admiral Cole speaks, every corner of the galaxy will hear her voice." "Good. What about the intelligence package?" Smiled grimly. "We have compiled every secret the Conquered has tried to bury. Illegal experiments, hidden wars, economic manipulation, political assassinations. 100 years of listening to their broadcasts gave us access to everything. When we release this information, the conquered will tear itself apart. Lisa looked at the main display, which showed the current position of every human ship in the solar system. Most of them were hidden, disguised as asteroids or debris, invisible to alien sensors. In 48 hours, they would emerge from hiding and announce humanity's arrival on the galactic stage. She thought about her parents, who had died believing humanity would always be considered inferior. She thought about her teachers, who had told her that some dreams were too big to achieve. She thought about every human who had ever looked up at the stars and wondered why the universe seemed so indifferent to their existence. Today, she whispered to herself, today we show them who we really are. She turned to and gave the final order. Launch the fleet. Tell Admiral Cole her ships are cleared for deployment, and make sure the aliens see us coming. I want them to have time to be afraid. Nodded and began transmitting orders. Across the solar system, engines activated, weapons systems powered up, and 1,200 ships began moving toward their designated positions. The awakening had begun, and the galaxy would never be the same. The conquered assembly hall was the largest structure ever built by intelligent beings. It floated in the neutral space between three major star systems, a massive sphere of crystal and metal that could hold representatives from every civilized species in the galaxy. For 10,000 years, the great decisions of galactic civilization had been made within its walls. Wars had been declared here. Peace treaties had been signed. The fate of entire species had been decided by votes cast in this very chamber. Today, the assembly was discussing trade quotas. It was boring work, the kind of administrative business that kept civilization running but inspired no one. Representatives from the 47 member species sat in their designated sections, half of them barely paying attention. Some were reviewing documents, others were having quiet conversations with their neighbors. A few were clearly sleeping. Ambassador of the Dominion was feeling particularly pleased with himself. His speech about the human petition had been a tremendous success. The recording had been viewed billions of times across the galaxy. He had received congratulations from diplomats of every major species. His wit and eloquence had reminded everyone why they were considered the cultural leaders of galactic civilization. He was thinking about what clever insult he might deliver next when every screen in the assembly hall flickered. The trade quota presentation vanished, the lighting changed, and a human face appeared on every display in the chamber. It was a woman, middle-aged with gray hair and steady eyes. She wore a simple uniform with no decorations. Her expression was calm, almost peaceful, but there was something in her gaze that made uncomfortable. She looked like someone who had been waiting a very long time for this moment. "My name is Cole," the woman said, "Admiral of the United Earth Navy. For 100 years, humanity has observed galactic civilization. We have listened to your broadcasts. We have studied your technology. We have heard every insult, every mockery, every declaration of our supposed inferiority." Jumped to his feet, his 4 arms waving frantically. "Cut this feed immediately. Security, shut down this broadcast. The primitives have somehow accessed our network." Technicians rushed to their stations, but nothing they did made any difference. The human woman continued speaking, her voice reaching every corner of the galaxy simultaneously. "You called us children. You called us evolutionary accidents. You laughed when we asked for basic respect. You us trade, us knowledge, us a seat at the table of galactic civilization." Across the chamber, representatives were rising from their seats, shouting questions that no one could answer. How had the humans accessed the conquered communication network? How were they broadcasting to every system at once? The technology required for such a transmission was beyond anything humans should possess. Then the reports started coming in. "Ships," someone shouted. "Human ships are appearing everywhere." Stared at his personal display. The data made no sense. Hundreds of human vessels were emerging from faster-than-light travel across conquered space. They were appearing near major planets, space stations, and military installations. They were moving in perfect formation, with a precision that suggested years of planning. And they were like nothing anyone had ever seen. The ships were sleek and elegant, with designs that seemed to flow like water. They did not match any known human technology. They did not match any known alien technology either. They were something entirely new, something that should not exist. You believed we had nothing, Admiral Cole continued. You believed our silence meant weakness. You were wrong. The defense systems activated automatically as a massive human vessel appeared in orbit. It was larger than anything in the fleet, a ship built for war on a scale that imagination. Its weapons systems were powered up, its shields were active, and it was broadcasting a simple message on all frequencies. We come in peace, but we are no longer asking. Felt something he had not experienced in decades. Fear. Real, genuine fear. The kind of fear that came from realizing you had made a terrible mistake. The human admiral was still speaking, her voice steady and clear. We do not seek war. We do not seek conquest. We seek only what we have always sought: respect, a seat at your table, recognition that humanity has earned its place among the stars. She paused, and in that moment of silence, the entire galaxy held its breath. You have one standard galactic day to respond, 24 of your hours. During that time, our ships will remain in position. They will not fire unless fired upon. They will not interfere with civilian activities. They are simply here to deliver a message. Admiral Cole leaned forward slightly, and her eyes seemed to look directly at even though she could not possibly know he was watching. For 100 years you told us we were nothing. You told us we had no value, no worth, no future. You laughed at our dreams and dismissed our potential. But while you were laughing, we were learning. While you were celebrating your superiority, we were building. While you were certain of our weakness, we were growing stronger than you ever imagined. The transmission shifted, showing images of human technology. Ships that could outrun anything in the conquered fleet. Weapons that could destroy space stations with a single shot. Medical technology that could cure diseases the conquered had struggled with for centuries. Computer systems that made alien networks look primitive. This is what humanity has accomplished in 100 years of silence, Admiral Cole said. Imagine what we will accomplish in the next 100 years. You can face that future as our enemies, constantly looking over your shoulders, wondering when we will decide to take what we want. Or you can face it as our partners, sharing in discoveries that will benefit every species in the galaxy. The choice is yours, but know this. Whatever you decide, humanity will never be silent again. We have found our voice, and we will be heard. The transmission ended. The screens returned to normal, but nothing in the assembly hall was normal anymore. Representatives were shouting. Military commanders were demanding information. Diplomats were trying to contact the conquered, which had maintained order in the galaxy for 10,000 years, was falling into chaos. Stood alone at his podium, staring at the empty space where the human face had been. He thought about his speech, about the jokes he had made, about the laughter of the assembly. He thought about the recordings that would exist forever, showing him mocking a species that had just proven itself more advanced than anyone had dreamed. He had made the greatest mistake of his career, perhaps the greatest mistake in history. And he had no idea how to fix it. The emergency session of the Conquered lasted 18 hours. It was the longest continuous meeting in galactic history, and also the most chaotic. Species that had been allies for thousands of years turned on each other, shouting accusations and assigning blame. Military leaders demanded immediate action against the humans. Diplomats called for negotiation. Scientists insisted they needed time to study the human technology. Nobody agreed on anything. Admiral Cole watched it all from the bridge of the constellation. humanity's flagship. The ship was positioned in neutral space, close enough to monitor the conquered assembly but far enough to avoid any appearance of aggression. Around her, 300 crew members worked with quiet efficiency, tracking every transmission and analyzing every piece of data. Commander Grant stood beside her command chair, reviewing the latest intelligence reports. He was 35 years old, with dark skin and a calm demeanor that never seemed to break no matter how tense the situation became. Had chosen him as her second in command specifically because he never panicked. "They are demanding military action," he reported. "They want the conquered fleet to attack our ships immediately." Nodded, she had expected that. There were proud creatures who did not handle embarrassment well, and what about the others? "The collective is calling for negotiation. They seem genuinely interested in peaceful resolution. The Federation has withdrawn completely. They sealed their borders and recalled all their diplomats." "Smart of them," murmured. "They had always been the most cautious species in the conquered. They would wait to see which way the situation developed before committing to any course of action." "There is something else," added. "Ambassador has requested a private communication channel. He wants to speak with you directly." Almost smiled. The alien who had mocked humanity in front of the entire galaxy now wanted a private conversation. She wondered what he could possibly say. "Put him through," she ordered. The main display flickered and his face appeared. He looked different than he had during his famous speech. The confidence was gone. The arrogance had faded. In its place was something had never seen in an alien before, genuine fear. "Admiral Cole," said. His voice was careful now, measured, nothing like the casual cruelty he had displayed days earlier. "The Dominion wishes to express its sincere regret for any statements that may have caused offense to the human species." Let the silence stretch. She had waited 100 years for this moment. She was not going to rush it. "Ambassador," she said finally, "do you know why we stayed silent for so long?" Shifted uncomfortably, his forearms fidgeting in a way that suggested extreme anxiety. "I assume you were developing your technology in secret, preparing for this moment." "That is partly true, but there was another reason. We were watching, not just watching your technology, Ambassador. We were watching you, learning your nature, understanding how galactic civilization really works." Said nothing. He seemed to sense that something dangerous was coming. "We learned," continued, "that the conquered respects only strength. That kindness is mistaken for weakness. That patience is seen as inability. We learned that your coalition of 47 species is held together not by shared values but by mutual fear. Everyone is afraid of everyone else. That is why you have maintained peace for 10,000 years, not because you wanted peace, but because you were afraid of war." "This is not entirely accurate," protested weakly. "The conquered represents the highest ideals of galactic civilization." "Does it?" Pulled up a data file on her console and transmitted it to display. "We also learned some other things, Ambassador. Things the conquered would prefer to keep hidden." Looked at the file, and his pale blue skin turned even paler. "We know," said, "that they have been manipulating trade agreements for centuries. You have systematically impoverished newer species to maintain your economic dominance. We have the records. Every transaction, every secret deal, every bribe." "How could you possibly know that?" whispered. "We also know that the collective has been conducting illegal biological experiments on pre-contact civilizations. They have been testing weapons and diseases on species that do not even know galactic civilization exists. We have the research data, the coordinates of the test sites, the names of the scientists involved." Was shaking now. "This information could destroy the conquered," he said. "Yes," agreed. "It could. We also know about the strip mining operations on uninhabited worlds. We know about the secret wars the conquered has fought and covered up. We know about the species that were exterminated because they became inconvenient. We know everything, Ambassador." She leaned forward, her eyes locked on the alien's face. "You forgot something important when you gave us access to your broadcast network. You thought we were too primitive to understand what we were hearing. You spoke openly because you assumed we were not listening, but we were listening to everything. For 100 years, we recorded every transmission, analyzed every conversation, decoded every encrypted message. We know more about the conquered than most of your own members know about themselves." Was silent for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely a whisper. "What does humanity want?" Had thought about this question for most of her adult life. She had imagined this conversation 1,000 times, planning exactly what she would say when the aliens finally asked. "We want what we have always wanted," she replied. "A seat at the table, full membership in the conquered with complete voting rights, trade agreements that are fair and equal, recognition that humanity is not inferior to any species in the galaxy. And if we refuse, then we release everything we know, every secret, every crime, every lie the conquered has told for 10,000 years. Your coalition will tear itself apart within a decade. Wars will break out across the galaxy. Billions will die. And humanity will watch from the safety of our solar system while you destroy each other." Closed his eyes. "This is blackmail." "No," said firmly. "This is negotiation. Blackmail would be threatening to hurt you. We are offering you a choice. You can accept us as equals and benefit from our technology and partnership, or you can reject us and suffer the consequences. Either way, humanity wins. The only question is whether the rest of the galaxy wins with us." The alien ambassador was silent for a very long time. Could see him struggling with the decision, weighing his pride against his survival, his arrogance against his fear. Finally he spoke. "I will take your terms to the conquered assembly. I cannot promise they will accept, but I will advocate for agreement. You have my word." Nodded. "You have 24 hours, Ambassador. Use them wisely." She ended the transmission and sat back in her chair, was staring at her with something like awe. "Do you think they will accept?" he asked. Looked out at the stars, thinking about all the generations of humans who had dreamed of this moment. "They will," she said. "They have no choice. And when they do, everything changes for them, for us, for everyone." She turned back to her crew and gave her next order. "Maintain positions, monitor all communications, and get me a direct line to Secretary General Hayes. We have a lot to discuss." 3 months had passed since humanity revealed itself to the galaxy. 3 months of negotiations, arguments, compromises, and finally agreement. The Treaty of Saul was signed on a Tuesday afternoon, in a ceremony broadcast to every inhabited world in the galaxy. Earth became the 48th member of the conquered of allied species, with full voting rights and complete equality under galactic law. The galaxy would never be the same. Dr. Lisa Morgan stood on the surface of Mars, watching the first alien diplomatic vessel descend toward the newly constructed embassy complex. The ship was designed, elegant and curved, painted in the pale blue colors of their. 3 months ago, they had been humanity's greatest critics. Now they were among the first to establish formal relations. Politics, Lisa thought. It changed faster than anyone expected. The Mars Embassy was humanity's gift to the galaxy, a neutral ground where any species could come to meet with human representatives. The buildings were designed by the greatest architects on Earth, combining human aesthetics with alien functionality. Gardens filled with plants from a dozen worlds surrounded the main structures. It was beautiful, welcoming, and intended to send a message. Humanity was ready to be a good neighbor. Secretary General Daniel Hayes stood at the podium, preparing to address the gathered crowd. He was 95 years old now, frail but determined. He had waited his entire life for this moment. He was not going to miss it. The crowd itself was unlike anything in human history. Humans stood beside, who towered over them with their 4 arms and pale skin. Delegates mingled with their counterparts, their differences forgotten in the face of this new reality. Scientists, diplomats, soldiers, and civilians from 100 worlds had come to witness the birth of a new era. Hayes cleared his throat and began to speak. 100 years ago, humanity received a message from the stars. We were told to be quiet and wait. We were told that we had nothing to offer galactic civilization. We were told that our dreams of equality were foolish fantasies. He paused, looking out at the mixed assembly. We chose to listen. We chose to learn. And when the time came, we chose to speak with a voice that could not be ignored. Applause rippled through the crowd, human and alien hands clapping together in appreciation. But this is not a victory of weapons or technology, Hayes continued. This is not about who has the bigger fleet or the more powerful weapons. This is a victory of patience, of unity, of the simple human refusal to accept that we were less than anyone else in this vast universe. Admiral Cole stood near the back of the crowd, wearing her full dress uniform for the first time in years. The medals on her chest gleamed in the Martian sunlight. She had earned every one of them, though the galaxy would never know the full story of what she and her crews had accomplished. Commander Grant stood beside her, watching the ceremony with quiet satisfaction. "Do you think they actually see us as equals now?" he asked softly. Watched Ambassador approach the podium to deliver the Conquered's formal welcome to humanity. The alien moved differently than he had 3 months ago. The arrogance was gone. In its place was something that looked almost like humility. He had learned a hard lesson about the cost of underestimating others. "No," admitted, "not yet, but they respect us now. They take us seriously, and that is a start. True equality will come with time as we work together and learn from each other." Began his speech, his translator converting his words into every human language simultaneously. "On behalf of the conquered of allied species, I welcome humanity to the galactic community. We acknowledge the mistakes of the past. We acknowledge the pain caused by ignorance and prejudice, and we commit ourselves to building a future of mutual respect and cooperation." Notice that he did not apologize directly. Politicians never did, but the meaning was clear enough. "Humanity has shown us," continued, "that silence is not weakness, that patience is not surrender, that the measure of a species is not how loudly it speaks, but how well it listens and learns. We look forward to discovering what else humanity has to teach us." The ceremony continued for another hour. Treaties were signed. Hands were shaken. Photographs were taken that would appear in history books for centuries to come. It was the most significant diplomatic event in galactic history, and everyone knew it. As the crowds began to disperse, Lisa Morgan found herself standing alone near the edge of the embassy gardens. She looked up at the Martian sky, watching ships from a dozen species climb toward orbit. Somewhere among them was a shuttle carrying her daughter back to the Prometheus facility, where a new generation of scientists was already working on the next breakthrough. Secretary General Hayes approached her, walking slowly but steadily despite his age. "You should be proud," he said. "None of this would have happened without Prometheus, without the work you and your people did." Lisa shook her head. It would have happened eventually. Humanity was always going to reach for the stars. We just helped them get there a little faster. Hayes smiled, "Maybe, but I prefer to think that we chose our path. We could have accepted our place at the bottom of galactic society. We could have given up and accepted that we would always be considered inferior. Instead, we worked. We sacrificed. We believed in something better." He looked up at the stars himself. "That is what I want people to remember," he said. "Not the technology, not the ships, not even the moment when we revealed ourselves. I want them to remember that we never stopped believing we could be more than what others saw in us." Lisa nodded. Somewhere on Earth, children were looking up at the night sky with new wonder. They knew now that the universe was full of life, full of possibilities, full of futures waiting to be discovered. They knew that humanity had earned its place among the stars. And they knew that the silence was over. On the orbital station Vigil, now converted into humanity's first galactic embassy, a new plaque had been installed in the observation deck. It bore a simple inscription, voted on by the crew who had served there during the long years of waiting. For a century we were silent, we listened, we learned, we grew, and when we finally spoke, the galaxy listened back. Beneath the official plaque, someone had added a handwritten note. No one knew who had written it, but no one removed it either. Never forget, patience is not weakness, silence is not surrender, and humanity is never alone. The stars continued to shine, unchanged by the events below, but the creatures looking up at them had changed forever. They were no longer observers, watching from the edges of civilization. They were participants, partners, equals in the great adventure of galactic existence. And somewhere, in a small house on Earth, a little girl asked her father why the aliens had come to visit their planet. Because we showed them who we really are, he told her, and now they want to know more. The girl looked up at the sky, her eyes full of wonder and hope. Will we go visit their planets too? Her father lifted her onto his shoulders so she could see the stars more clearly. We can go anywhere now, he said. The whole galaxy is waiting for us. And for the first time in 100 years, humanity looked toward the future without fear, without shame, and without silence. The journey was just beginning.